Hi there, my name is Jen and I am the teen librarian here at the Grandview Heights Public Library. You'll usually find me in normal times after school here in the basement, which is our area for grades 4 through 12. But I'm here today to talk about books and some music for kids who are babies through 3rd grade. So I picked out some of my favorites. I'll go ahead and get started with those. So my first book that I'd like to talk about, this is actually my favorite board book artist. You know, it may look like your average board book, but all of Sandra Boynton's work is just so good. She's so good at putting together just the perfect words that rhyme well, and she's got the expressions on the faces are just so sweet, and sometimes they're also really funny. But this is called Snuggle Puppy, and it is a book that lends itself really well to like singing it, or in my case, when my kids were little, I actually sort of rapped it. So you could do that. I looked up on YouTube and found someone singing it with a really nice sweet tune, and I was able to sing that one too. So I think music is really wonderful for kids and babies, and this book is I mean, you can just read it, but it's really nice to sing too. But Sandra Boynton's books are just some of my favorites, and I highly recommend checking them out for your babies. Okay, I'm going to move on to picture books. So a lot of you have probably heard of Knuffle Bunny and the Piggy and Elephant books by Mo Willems, right? But I think this book of his is really underrated. It's Nenets, Baguette, and it stars a frog. She lives in France with her mother, and it's her day to go out for the first time ever to get the baguette for the family. And it's a big task. Her mom gives her money, and she has to get there without getting distracted and then get home. And she runs into some problems along the way, and it's really funny. It's very melodramatic, so if you can get into telling a story in a little bit of a silly way, this is a this is a good crowd pleaser. I would say it's for ages 2 or 3 to 5 or 6. I actually like to do a really probably poorly done French accent when I read this book, and I get really dramatic, and so even you know, I even recommend this for the kindergarten read-alouds and 1st grade read-alouds that I know they have at the schools sometimes. And of course, Mo Willems' artwork, this is a lot like the Knuffle Bunny artwork, where he has the scenes, and then the artwork is just so great. I love Mo Willems. And this book this is another picture book, and this is actually one of my favorite picture books of all time. It is just so wonderful. So this is a Caldecott honor. It's called All the World, and it was written by Liz Garton Scanlon, and Marla Frazee is the illustrator who won it, or who got the Caldecott honor for this. And it's set at sort of in an oceanside town, and it's a lot of it's really simple. There's a brother and a sister who are going down to the beach to spend some time, and then there are parents, and then later there's a storm, and they all get pretty wet. There's a farmer's market, and it's really simple. There's not a big story. I mean, there's a story in the pictures, but it's not this big elaborate story. But it's really it's something that just, I think, can make you sort of feel tied to the people who are around you. And I think that's an especially nice message right now. I mean, at any time, of course, but right now, where we sort of are missing the connections that we have with people. So yeah, this is All the World, and I recommend it. We also have board book versions of that book. The last picture book I'm going to mention today is another really big favorite of mine, and I recommend this. I mean, I would say the same ages as the Mo Willems book, Nunnes, Baguette. You know, I think even 2- and 3-year-olds would like it, but I mean, it's really funny. I mean, it has underwear, right? So, yeah, obviously, 5 and 6-year-olds are going to appreciate it too, especially because there's a surprise ending. It's set. This is Leon. He's the main character, and he basically finds a pair of old holy underwear, and he makes some decisions, and then he hears his conscience is talking to him about the decisions that he made. And he's really kind of spooked, and he goes on to sort of rectify, the things he's done with the old holy underwear. And then, like I said, there's a surprise ending. So really funny book. I just laughed and laughed the first time I read it, and I recommend it to everybody because I think it's sort of a secret awesome book. The next book that I'm going to recommend. This is nonfiction. This is actually a biography. It's called Dansa, and it's not about Tony Danza, as Miss Chelsea excitedly thought when she saw the title on the list of the books that I was going to do. But this is by Duncan, I'm not sure how to say this, but Toniatu. And so this is a biography of a girl who was born, or a woman who was born in 1917. And she, from a pretty young age, the first time she saw some folk dancers in Mexico City, where she was born, she was, really captivated and knew she wanted to be a dancer. So she studied dance, she studied ballet, and some modern dancers from the United States came to visit, and she was really kind of captivated by that too. So she did this really cool thing that still to this day is an important part of Mexico City's cultural events. They still put on her events. She combined the dansas, which are the Mexican folkloric ballets, with modern dance, and she choreographed them, and she really made them into this really huge production, and she actually traveled the world putting these performances on, and they still take place 2 days a week without fail for decades. They've done this in Mexico City. So she's a very important part of dance and cultural history in Mexico, and this was a really great book to read. I loved it. And this artist has, the author illustrator has lots of good stuff. And so if you like the style, there's more to look for by him. The next book I'm going to recommend, we have this actually in our picture book section, but I like this. As you can see, it's thicker. It's a longer book. So we have it in our longer picture book section, which is a whole section of books for kids who still appreciate picture books but can sit through them. This one I actually usually read to my kids in a few different settings, so it might take us 3 or 4 nights, maybe even longer, like bedtimes to read. And so this one is called Armstrong. This is by Torben Kuhlmann, and I believe he's Norwegian, and he has a few. There's one that's about, I think, Edinburgh, and another one about maybe Edison, and but this is my favorite. So it's about mice are the main characters, and mice are at this point, mice used to be really, really interested in science and technology and advancement in this book, but at this point in the book, when the book starts, mice have all, they don't really care about it anymore. They say, oh, the moon is made of cheese, and that sort of tells you what they believe. And even though Armstrong, the main character, who is named after Neil Armstrong, he knows that's not true, and he wants to return to a sort of a time when science was more important in mice lives. And so anyway, this is how he wants to get to the moon to prove that it's not made of cheese. And this is how he develops his flying machines, and it's about that journey. And it's a really, really beautiful, as I already showed you some of it, but the pictures are really beautiful. Some of them also almost have like a graphic novel feel to them. And I think that, you know, graphic novels are really good for kids who are transitioning from picture books to chapter books. So this can kind of, you know, be good for that too. I'll put that down and move on to my next book, which is also a graphic novel, speaking of graphic novels. And you may have seen this. It's a TV series on Netflix, but it was, you know, a book series first, like most things on Netflix, or a lot of things on Netflix. And so it's called Hilda and the Stone Forest. This isn't the first one, but they're not the kind that you have to read in order. Hilda, this is set in modern day Scandinavia. Doesn't really say where exactly. And so Hilda, she lives, in the first couple books, she lives in the, like a cabin sort of in the woods with her mom, and then they move to the city in the later books. But her world is, in her world there are fantasy beasts, I guess you could say, as well as humans, and she tends to sort of gravitate towards the fantasy creatures. And that's mostly what these books are about. So sometimes the humans come into play, sometimes they don't. But the other thing about this series is that for those kids who are just getting started with reading, as I was saying earlier, this is really nice because it's not super text heavy. There are spreads that almost seem like they're like close to being like wordless books, and so it really relies on the pictures and the artwork to tell the story, even more than the text, and even more than your average graphic novel. So this is one of the many wonderful books about Hilda. Yeah, it's a really great series. So if your kids have liked the TV series, or if they like this, maybe they would want to watch the TV series. But I recommend this book for sure. Two more books to talk about. These are our JBCs. So that's what we call them. They're beginning chapter books. So when your kids have they're ready to move on from the easy readers, then the beginning chapter books are, you know, where they'll go. So these are two books from a series. The first one is Mindy Kim and the Yummy Seaweed Business. So Mindy Kim, she has recently moved to Florida. She was in California. Her mom has recently died, so that's hard. And she's starting in a new school, so that's also hard. But she's she's a sweet and upbeat girl who, you know, when she moves to Florida, she kind of sticks out a little bit because culturally she's pretty different, and she brings these seaweed snacks to school, and the kids think she's kind of weird. But so she decides to turn it into a business, and which is really good. It goes really well. The kids really like it. But she has to contend with some kids who are not very nice about it. And this is the book about her sort of getting through that. As the cover sort of describes, even though she has some of these challenges, it's not it's not dealt with intensely. So, if you have a kid who's real sensitive, this still may be a good read for them. It's not too heavy. And the author is Lila Lee. And there are other Mindy Kim books coming, if your kiddos like that one. And then Tom Engelberger. So some of you may already be familiar with Tom Engelberger. He writes the Origami Yoda books, which are popular for older kids, like 4th, 5th, 6th grade. Anyway, he has this beginning chapter book series that my daughter and I read when she was younger, and we just laughed and laughed. So Inspector Flytrap, he's a detective, and he's a Venus flytrap. He works with a goat named Nina, he gets around on a skateboard because, you know, he doesn't have legs, but Nina helps him get around on the skateboard. And he just, you know, all of the books, there's just a series of pretty silly mysteries that he has to solve. And so it's good for kids who are just past the easy readers, who are ready for a bigger challenge. As you can see, there are illustrations throughout, which is, again, nice for kids who are making that transition from the picture-heavy things like picture books, graphic novels, easy readers, to things that are more text dense. So anyway, really silly series, really good, and a pretty big crowd pleaser. So if your kid likes this series, there's lots to look for there. This is the second book in the series. The first one's just called Inspector Flytrap, but this is also one that you don't have to read you don't have to read them in order. So if the first one's not in, you don't have to worry. If you can get a different one, that's good too. So that's it for books. I do have some people know and some people don't know that we have CDs in the children's area. We have kids' music. And Elizabeth Mitchell is one of my favorites. I really like her stuff. It's sweet without being saccharine. This is called You Are My Little Bird. And it has some, I think, originals by her. It also has songs that I think a lot of us have heard, like Peace Like a River and Three Little Birds, which I believe was by Bob Marley. So some of them will be familiar, and then some of them she's got a couple in Japanese that she sings. She sings Japanese and English, and I believe also one on here that's in Spanish and English. So just a really it's a pretty interesting CD. I really like listening to it. It's one that I sort of encourage my 5-year-old to listen to when we need to listen to some kids' music, because I really like it. And then Elizabeth Mitchell for this one. This is another one by her, but she actually collaborates with Lisa Loeb on this one. It's called Catch the Moon. So it has some ones again that you'll recognize, like Twinkle Twinkle, but also other ones that are sort of less well known. But this is also a really nice one to listen to. It's not just for bedtime, even though it kind of looks like it. It's a good anytime CD. So that's it for my recommendations. I'll probably be back in the spring with more. You'll hear lots of other good ones from other people who work here at the library. And just a reminder, if you want, if you're looking for something and you're kind of frustrated because you can't come in and browse, you can always give us a call or send us an email through the website and just say, I have a kid who's this age and I'm looking for something at this level or this type, and we'll get you a good stack. You can pick it up at curbside service. We'd love to help you find some stuff. We'd love to recommend some stuff to you and get you some good stacks of books, because I know you can't come in and browse. All right. Thank you so much for listening.